while going through COVID-19 and quarantine. 3 pointers to shift their mindset on a daily basis, maybe a routine they can start implementing.
Yeah.
And then also a couple tips on nutrition, specifically while being quarantined.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I would say from a mindset perspective is to remind yourself that you never signed a contract to be perfect. And I think that when we look at from a mindset perspective, consistency over perfection. I am a perfectionist by nature, so I'm very aware of the tendency to feel like you have to be 100% or it like doesn't even matter. However, when it comes to anything in life, perfection is not realistic. And so if we're trying to be perfect with our nutrition, that's going to kind of backfire, because the minute that you slip up, you're going to fall off the deep end. And that's just, we see that in the literature over and over again. So the one thing is, I need this constant reminder, because I am a perfectionist. It's that I never signed a contract to be perfect, and that if I'm consistent, it's going to move me towards my goals faster than if I'm perfect. Because if I'm trying to be perfect, like I said, we're going to have these moments of relapse, and these kind of like, we're going to go way off track. Whereas if I'm just trying to focus on consistency and I make a choice that maybe wasn't the best choice at that time, it's really easy to just gently move myself back to making the next choice a better choice. So that would be the first thing.
That's very
The second thing would be control what you can. And I think that oftentimes, again, we look at something like COVID, right? There's a lot of unpredictability, and our brains thrive on predictability. So something that kind of keeps us safe and comfortable has been taken away. So there's a lot of things that we don't know. But what you do know is you can control the next 24 hours. So what does that look like? I might not be able to predict what the next 3 months look like, or the next 6 months, but I can predict and at least set up a plan for the next 24 hours. So control what I can. I know that today I can, drink my water. I can get some movement in. I can get outside for a walk. If I can get a workout in, great, but I'm not going to, put any pressure on myself. There's certain things that I know that I can control, and that's where my attention is going to be. A lot of times we focus so much on the outcome. Like we want to lose 20 pounds. So it's like, I'm going to focus on the finish line, the outcome. And what's interesting in the research is that the more you focus on the outcome, the further away you actually move from your goal. And it's this concept of goal frustration, because once I'm focusing on that outcome, I become very aware of how far I am from that goal. It almost seems insurmountable. So what we want to do is, it's okay to have goals, but we want 90% of our attention to be focused on the here and now. What can I do today? What can I control today that will eventually move me towards that goal? And then 10%, I'm going to keep my attention on that goal just to know that I'm moving in the right direction. And that's something where I see a lot of people make that mistake of being very outcome oriented. So it's like they step on the scale, and if it's not down, then it's like, well, today's a awful day, so I'm just going to go and eat whatever I want since the scale wasn't down. And that's a good sign that you're focusing too much on the outcome, to kind of shift that attention back to the here and now. What can I do today? What are the actions and the habits that are going to serve me today that I can control? And then I'm just going to repeat that process every single day. And so that would be the second thing from kind of like the mindset shift. And then if we want to do like one more, the third one would be self-compassion. That's one of the things that is kind of duplicated in the research over and over again, that improves sense of well-being, sense of confidence, self-worth. Having compassion towards others is very easy. We think like, yeah, of course I'm a compassionate individual. Turning that inward is very challenging. And so we have to actually have ways to enhance that. So having something like a gratitude journal, where you're just, kind of looking at the things that are going well in your life that you're grateful for, being able to, either meditate for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and just sit with your thoughts, and finding ways to increase the compassion that you have for yourself, or, really thinking about, why is it that I can be compassionate towards others, but when I look inward, that's really difficult for me. Can you sit with that feeling and start to unpack that? So it's one of those gifts that keeps on giving, if we can actually work on becoming more self-compassionate. So those are kind of like the three things, if I had to say from a mindset perspective, that I would hope that everyone takes away.
I want to emphasize that last point you made, because it really does tie the other two as well, about being present. When I was listening to one of your podcasts about judgment, and how playing the comparison game is not healthy, but when you are able to sit with pain and sit with any concerns that you have, that is a more healthy way, because the body has this natural gut reaction of just wanting to push away any uncomfortable feelings. And I think that's when we start stress eating and we start putting band-aids on why we're struggling, or no, not even why. We put band-aids on the fact that we're struggling. But when you're willing to sit with it, be present, and learn to have compassion, that's when you're able to shift your mind into the gear for the sustainable results. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And trying to like push those feelings aside because they're negative feelings is actually makes it more likely that they'll rebound. It's known as the rebound effect in psychology. So it's like this feeling came over me and it's a negative feeling. So I'm trying to get it out as quick as possible. But there's this rebound effect that makes it bounce back even stronger. And the more that we try to suppress or distract, it's very common for individuals to have an uncomfortable feeling and immediately pick up their phone, put something on Netflix, but they want to distract because it's an uncomfortable feeling. So learning to actually sit with that. And the cool part about, practicing mindfulness and sitting with uncomfortable feelings is that you begin to realize that they're just fleeting and that the emotion that you're feeling is going to pass. I use the analogy like it's a cloud. Inevitably the cloud's going to pass by. Some clouds move faster than others, so you might be sitting under this this cloud that's an uncomfortable cloud. It might move pretty slowly, but eventually it will pass by. So when you can actually sit and be present with those feelings, you start to realize that they are fleeting, that it will pass, that this is not your forever state. And that becomes very empowering because whatever it is you're going through, it's not permanent. And that's especially useful in what we're experiencing now.
Yes, I love that. And, that's one of the things that's impressed upon me in implementing mindfulness in my life is, there's this false perspective that if you feel weak, that means you're weak. Or, if you are processing pain, that means you're weak. And in reality, what you're saying is that it's through processing pain and being okay with feeling weak that we actually build more strength.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like at the root of mindfulness and practicing that. It's to disconnect from the identity. You are not your thoughts. Those thoughts that you're having, they're not identities. They're not who you are. It's a thought, and you are basically the observer. However you want to visualize that, like you're kind of sitting behind them, just watching them. You're the observer of those thoughts, but they are not you. That's not your identity, and that's really being able to create that disconnect between your thoughts and that identity is a huge value.
Yeah. I would like to try this on for size for a second, because I think the idea of mindfulness and how people can process pain and feelings of weakness is so key. I know we're running a little over, but I was wondering if you could take us through maybe what an exercise like that would look like. Do you recommend, when somebody is feeling shame or maybe body image issues, do you recommend them taking a moment to look in the mirror and say phrases, or what would be the next steps to help people stop themselves in the tracks and recognize those feelings?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is to sit with it and observe it and identify what those feelings are actually like. So when we think about those, like that emotion, what does that physically feel like? Is there any way to identify some of the different feelings? Because it's typically not just one. You might be feeling a little bit of anxiety, you might be feeling a little bit of shame, some guilt. Start to identify and put a name to it, make it real.
Like,
Because sometimes when we fail to do that, it's like
yeah,
this abstract concept that like has this power over us, but we don't know what it is. And when we name it, all of a sudden it becomes tangible. It becomes something that we can face. And then when we associate the physical feeling with it, like maybe it's tightness in my chest or shortness of breath, or there's some sort of physical attribute that goes along with it, and we can make it more of a concrete concept versus this out there abstract idea. It becomes easier to deal with. And then sitting with it and literally observing it, and even writing down some of those thoughts, like where did your mind go, what was the story that you were telling yourself at that time, what were the emotions, what were the physical feelings, and then actually going through the process of not identifying with that. So stating that I am not my feelings, I am not my emotions, and actually witnessing how they pass.